Joshua's entrepreneurial journey began at the age of 18 to 19 when he realized he didn't want to be in the corporate environment. So he started an e-commerce business on eBay. Joshua gained his sixth client within 2 months after growing his knowledge, expertise, and network. And he decided to recruit his childhood best friend, Louise. Is it Louise? Louis?
Louis. Yeah.
Louis, as his COO of Chronos Agency shortly after they hired their first employee. As of today, Joshua has teams in Europe and US and 2 offices in Singapore and Malaysia. So Joshua, thank you so much for hopping on the CEO talk with me. I've been on your podcast and I'm super excited to have you on my podcast now. I know we had some amazing conversations last time, so I'm excited to pick that up in this podcast as well.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for having me, Selene. And like I mentioned, I had a really good time on a podcast. One of the best episodes that I've filmed on my show. Definitely check that out if you guys are listening. Genuinely, like really, a really fun conversation.
Nice. I'll link it in the show notes as well, so you guys can go check that episode out and Joshua's podcast as well.
Yep.
Cool. We'll start with icebreaker questions. So can you tell me about your morning routine? What's your favorite part of your morning routine, if you have a morning routine?
Terrible. No morning routine. I literally wake up, shower, walk across the hallway, work. That's my morning routine. It's terrible. I used to go through this. I read The Miracle Morning, and there is a series of 5 activities that I used to do, including a cold shower, some form of exercise, journaling, meditation, which I still do, and a couple of other things. And I realized that the effort that it took me to go through all 5 things was so overwhelming. Over many, many days, it just became a chore. And I never got to going over the hump and forming a habit out of those 5 things. So that was a shame. But what I still do till today is that I realize that this isn't a common thing for everyone. I wake up and the first thing I do is take a shower.
Interesting.
I take a shower.
You don't take a shower before you go to bed?
I do both.
Oh, you do both. Interesting.
Yeah, so I shower at least twice. I mean, maybe it's an Asian thing. I don't know. Like growing up, that's always what I've done, and it wakes me up. It's like, all right, it's game time. So I take a shower, make some coffee. Been obsessed with hand grinded coffee beans recently, so that's what I've been doing. Pour over coffees. So that kind of is a form of my meditation, because there's nothing else that I can do except for focusing on grinding the beans and pouring the coffee and making sure that my timing's right. And I have a little scale that tells me how much time I've spent at each phase of the coffee making process. So that's my meditation, like mindfulness, right? Yeah. And most recently, this only started just like last week, I've shifted my meditation routine to the mornings. So I start things off morning meditation. But again, not a routine. Occasionally that gets skipped over if I have like a 6 a.m. call and I woke up at like 5:40. So yeah.
I totally relate with you on having morning routine that is so long, and sometimes I used to beat myself up for it. I did the exact same thing. I would wake up, some form of activity. So I usually go to the gym in the morning, journal, meditate, make breakfast, and then boom, like 2 hours gone. And I was like, oh my God, this takes so long. And so, I sort of just pick and choose what I want to do. I try and do meditation Monday to Friday at least, and I think I'm pretty good at that. But gym like every other day. But I totally agree. Like morning routine is not for everyone. And sometimes it takes a lot of energy to do it.
Yeah. And the thing about gym is, what's interesting is that for a good part of my growing up years, working out in the gym and lifting heavy, like strength training specifically, has been a part of my identity. And very recently, I realized that doesn't have to be the case, because I beat myself up when I don't get to go to the gym because I'm busy at work and my days are filled up with meetings, and it just feels terrible. And it doesn't have to be that way, because it's just self-inflicted pain because of something I'm holding on to. And so I kind of killed that part of my belief and identity. And now I still go to the gym like twice a week. So nothing crazy anymore. And it's no longer about I am worthy because I go to the gym and I take care of myself, but I want to versus I need to kind of a thing. It's like a slight shift in what I believe now.
Mindset. Yeah, totally.
Like my mindset. So that's been very helpful. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. What's the best piece of advice you'd ever been given?
Best piece of advice? Ooh, so many. One that comes to mind, top of mind right now, is probably pay attention to the conversations that you're having with yourself, because those conversations often become your reality. Obviously, I'm paraphrasing here, but when I kind of sit down and really think about and be mindful about the things that I say to myself, I find that they're really mean, and it's not. These are not things that I would say to someone else, but I'm saying these things to myself, and it's really, it's quite enlightening, because now I realize that it's it's either blocking me from being my best self, or just a terrible limiting set of beliefs that I'm inflicting upon myself again. And things like, oh, I'm just not just limiting statements like I'm just not a X type of person, or I'm just not good at B, which are things that I wouldn't say to someone else. And why would I say that to myself? It's kind of like a realization of what it means to love myself, I guess, and be kinder to myself. And I never thought of myself as as a person who would be that mean.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think a lot of times we sit down and we like think through these feelings or thoughts in our head, and it's very interesting. It's a very interesting process to kind of self-reflect on what you think of yourself and what you're thinking in your mind. And oftentimes we realize something and then we do something about it as well, I think.
Yeah, and it starts with just being a little bit more conscious with and mindful with what's happening inside.
Yeah, totally. Okay, we're going to dive into some questions about how you got started with your business. So, I asked this for all my guests on the podcast, but how did you become an entrepreneur? And were you always interested in business? Did your parents have their own business? And can you tell me a little bit about your background and story?
Sure. Growing up, my dad had he ran a wholesale fruits business, as well as a retail fruits business. So he sold fruits.
Oh, wow.
Really interesting. Back in Malaysia, that's where I grew up. And we grew up pretty well off. Well, not well off, like lower mid-income family type of a situation. Self-employed dad, mom was helping out. And it all came crashing down one day. And well, not one day, it was probably a series of events that led to bankruptcies, personal and business bankruptcies. Terrible. And I never knew what was happening or what that meant. All I knew was that I was moving as a small kid. The house is getting sold, and I now had to live with my dad. And I found out that they're separated now; they're divorced. So that kind of left an impact on me. And along the way, there are a lot of arguments between my parents, and I was privy to the context of some of those arguments, and it always had a theme around money and not having enough of it, and some kind of argument that relates to money. And So I came to Singapore when I was 12, 13 years old on a scholarship. So I came here alone, went to boarding school, dorms for, in fact, 10 years of my life. Up till 2019, I was living in a dorm room.
That's crazy. That's like a big portion of your life.
Very big, yeah, very significant. So yeah, from 2009 to 2019, I was living in dorm rooms, and yeah. So growing up, I realized that money isn't everything. Like everybody tells you that money isn't everything, but money sure as hell can solve some really painful problems. If we take money out of the equation, what you're left with are problems, are the real problems that you can solve. But without that shroud taken away, it's really difficult to see what the real problems are. So I firmly believed, and I still believe, that money is really important, and it eliminates the kind of the basic needs and foundational pains of the human condition: food, shelter, love, and whatever, and water and whatnot. So yeah, it was survival at the beginning, and it was the mindset I went with was, I just want to make a lot of money. I just want to make as much money as I can, because I don't want to see my family suffer for the rest of their lives. And so that was the kind of primary motivation when I first got started. And I tried a bunch of things. I was a private tutor that paid a lot of money. That was great.
Private tutor, yeah.
Yeah, as a university student, I was being paid like $50 an hour for tuition. Yeah, crazy. Amazing how much money parents are willing to pay out here in Singapore. And I was a waiter. That was bad. I paid like $9 an hour. And then I found out about eBay and retail arbitrage. So I was buying stuff off Walmart and Amazon off a discount and selling them off full price, retail price on eBay. And I was making a bit of margin, a bit of profit there, about 30% profit every transaction. That was great because I was a one-man operation. I had no cost, and it was my first taste of making a profit off the internet. And I was like, this works. Crazy. One of those ads. They're not telling a lie. So I did that, and I made a little bit of money, like about couple thousand bucks maybe. And that was the most amount of money I've ever seen in my life. I was like, holy crap, that's a lot of money. So I took that money. I was like, all right, I have a bit of money. Where do I invest this sum of money now? And I spoke to a couple of people, and they're like, you're not going to make anything out of investing $1,000. You're better off spending that off on your education. Like, great. So I bought a lot of courses, a ton of courses. And that was when I learned about Shopify, Facebook, digital marketing, copywriting, and email. Email caught my attention. Klaviyo was an up and coming software. A lot of people, there was a lot of conversation around Klaviyo and email and how it should be driving a good percentage of your profits as an e-commerce business. And so that was kind of my entry point into the space. And when I left school, we had about 30 full-time remote employees across Asia, mostly in Malaysia and the Philippines. And I'm based in Singapore, so we're all in the same time zone. It's a perfect setup, and we were working with clients from all around the world. So that was great, but it was really challenging, and it still is challenging till today because that's my first real job. This is my first real job, so I never really had a proper job, which is really, really strange to think about, because now we kind of have to figure out everything based off, I suppose, first principles and experiences that other people and in our network have had, and kind of learning through that. So yeah, that's kind of our journey and how we got started and where we're at right now. And today we have a team of about 90 people.
90 people. Holy.
Yeah, and about 8
amazing.
or 9 of which are contractors. So the rest are full time.
Oh, okay. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Are they mostly based in Singapore now, or
Nope, they're still
all
pretty
over
spread out. Yeah,
Asia?
very
Yeah.
spread out.
So what was the timeline when you started eBay versus when you started Chronos Agency?
eBay was, I think, 2015
Okay.
or 16, somewhere around there, 15.
Uh-huh.
And then Chronos was started as a side hustle kind of a thing in the middle of 2017. And in 2018, we incorporated the business and became a real thing.
Yeah.
It's a real boy now. Yeah.
Do you see challenges working with clients that are worldwide with the time zone that you and your team are in?
Oh, time zone's a bitch. Yeah.
Yeah.
Terrible. Something I face every single day. And I try to wake up really early now to cover kind of towards the end
Like the
parts of
afternoon, of
the
North
afternoons.
America. Yeah.
But Eastern time is always a tough one because we're
Yeah.
exactly 12 hours apart. So it's 10 p.m. Eastern right now.
Uh-huh.
And it's 10 a.m. for me.
Right.
So I wake up at like 4:30 sometimes to take a 5 a.m. call
in the morning. Oh wow.
And even then, it's pretty difficult because 5 p.m. that's like kind of towards the end of a work day for someone on the East Coast.
Right.
And if they're out in the office, they're gonna commute back home. They gotta leave the office by 6, and so that's a tough one. But yeah, I think the bigger struggle is in the fact that we have a globally distributed team wherein our team members from different departments, from creatives, strategy, copy, they're also in different parts of the world. And our clients are also in a different part of the world. So kind of coordinating timelines and meeting schedules become really difficult. The bright side of having a structure like this is that, I like to say this, we work when you guys are asleep. So that's
then
perfect.
I wake up and it's done.
Exactly. When you wake up, it's done. It's like you're maximizing your 24 hours.
Right.
So that's a silver lining, but it's still tough. So we use a lot of tools to kind of make sure that we're on time and in sync with each other.
Yeah.
ClickUp, making sure that everybody's on top of what's happening at every part of the project. We use Slack for real-time communication across all the groups. And yeah, those two tend to suffice quite a bit. And we have a decently well put together process and a routine around communication and client interaction.
Right.
So but it's still hard.
It is super hard.
Most of our clients are brands that also have a globally distributed team, so they're kind of used to dealing with a globally distributed workforce or a remote team. So that kind of helps as well.
Yeah. Do you have a project manager to help you organize all that, or you just really dial down into your processes?
Both. So we have a crazy LMS, a learning management system, and a that kind of documents everything that needs to be done. So anyone at any point in time can go into that LMS and pick a video out of the 24 modules that we have and hundreds of videos that we have to find the solution to their problems. We also document SOPs and processes on Confluence. And that's kind of our central hub of information.
Okay.
And on top of that, we have my COO and co-founder Louis kind of oversees the entire operational arm of things, but also a director of client success who is a project manager, oversees the movement of each project, and we have team managers that oversee each collection of projects as well. So decently put together team structure that covers for the gaps that our processes and SOPs don't catch.
Yeah, that's crazy. How long did it kind of take you to get to where you are right now with all your SOPs and processes in place? Did you know that you needed to put in SOPs right when you started the company, or it happened over a course of time?
I'm super lucky that was the mindset that we went in with from day one. So I've had really good mentors and people that I've met along the way who have kind of moved me in certain directions. And I read a lot and I study a lot. I've done pretty well in school, actually. I've done pretty well in school, and I learned things pretty quickly. So I read a lot of books, kind of studied what made a business successful and what are the common pitfalls and things like that. And through that, I kind of realized that the ones that were successful were highly organized and process driven, not process focused, but process driven.
Mm-hmm.
So we have now what we have is a process enabled outcome oriented culture, which means that we try our best to stick with the processes, but we understand what each process is trying to accomplish. And if at any point in time that process does not accomplish the outcome that we're trying to accomplish, we'll change the process to make sure that outcome is accomplished. And that's kind of the broad thesis behind everything that we do. And it's the only way we've been able to scale that quickly.
That's crazy. I wish I started drilling down on processes and SOPs early on. And we didn't really get to it, I would say, until a year and a half ago. And we've been in business for 5 years. And now we're in that stage of growing pain where we're trying to put a lot of processes in place while the team is growing, while we have a bunch of projects on the go all the time. So it's just a lot right now. But I definitely think having processes in place and being process driven is probably the key to getting to 7 or 8 figures for sure.
Absolutely. And it's it's kind of like at some point the growth of the organization extends beyond yourself, and you have people that drive certain functions, like really key people that drive certain functions. And then the next phase of that growth is the key people would drive processes versus other people, if that makes sense. And so the only way to get to that point is to understand that you have to build for the next phase of your business. So right now we're thinking about what are things going to look like if we 5x'd the amount of clients that we have right now, 10x the amount of clients that we have right now. What kind of systems would break first? Where's our initial breaking points, and how do we preemptively build things or fix things before they break? Because that's super important.
Yeah, that's crazy. How do you guys get most of your clients right now?
That's where we suck. It's mostly referrals, but we don't have a system that we don't have a predictable system of client acquisition. So there's a lot of so 100% of our clients are inbound, meaning they come to us.
Right.
We've done basically no prospecting, which is not a good thing. It's great because
it means you do amazing work, right?
Yeah. That we've done really good work, but it's hard to predict and it's hard to control growth. So it's never a good thing when a business says something along the lines of, "Oh, we're not able to take on any clients at this point in time." So we've built in an additional layer of capacity, about 20% additional capacity at any point in time. So we kind of feed that people into training and development while they wait for new clients to come in. And so we're at a point where we have slack and capacity, and now we're kind of just waiting for the inbound leads to come in. And at scale, it's kind of predictable, like the number of leads, and we kind of see a seasonality trend thing going on. Most of our conversations happen in Q3 when people are prepping up for Q4.
Right.
But it's really annoying because I want to be able to kind of flip a switch and say, all right, I want 10 more conversations today, and I would like 5 more clients. There you go.
Right.
Kind of thing. So, yeah.
Have you tried any prospecting?
Not yet, but we are doing a couple of things right now. Cold email, outbound, is something that I kind of shunned away from, primarily because it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
But the thing is that there are massively successful businesses that have been built around outbound prospecting, beyond cold email. There's LinkedIn and building actual relationships with people in real life and that kind of stuff. And it's something that I've never really looked into. I blame complacency on myself that I've been blessed with, a really good reputation and network that we never really had to go out looking for leads. But now that we have to and that we want to grow, it's important.
Yeah. Cool. Knowing what you know now, is there anything you would have done differently when you were first starting out?
Yeah. That's a good question. I think two things. First, now I know this very deeply, that the quality of questions we ask determine the quality of our lives and the pace at which we grow, both as a business and as a person. So if I had if I had that in my conscious mind years ago, I would be able to ask better questions and be a bit more mindful in how we made decisions. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, we have one of our core principles is pursue growth. That means never settling for what is and looking for the next step in growing ourselves and our business.
Right.
I felt that I haven't lived up to that value and that principle to 100% of what it can be. I've always been in pursuit of growth and always been in pursuit of new knowledge, but I've never been 100% intentional with what I am looking for and defining exactly the problems that I'm trying to fix and the opportunities that I'm trying to embark on.
Right.
Which led us on a kind of a reactive path and journey on, a client's asking us of XYZ services and they know that we don't do that and they're willing to be a guinea pig. So now we're on this path. And there's this crypto thing. Interesting. Let's see where that takes us. So it's never been properly defined in terms of like what kind of a journey and what paths we want to take. So linked to the first thing and the ability to kind of say no to things that may or may not be a distraction. And I guess part of it comes from time and experience and wisdom.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I agree. I think when I first started out, I just kind of wanted to try everything, and some things worked, some things didn't. I don't regret trying anything at all because that's how I learn. But definitely as I grow and also as the company grows, I am more mindful on making decisions, not just because it impacts things at a bigger scale now, it also impacts more people. My team, it's bigger now. Every decision I make, it needs to be thought out a little bit more because I'm responsible for other people, and whatever decision I make will also impact other people in a way that maybe I can't even think of. So I've definitely had to learn that last year and continuing to learn that. But I totally understand and agree with that. What's a mistake that you made in your entrepreneur journey that maybe not that you regret, but that you look back and you're like, okay, that was a mistake? Like one
A
incident.
mistake. Oof. Lots of mistakes. Lots of mistakes. Lots of mistakes. I guess in the business model that we're in, it's just people. We sell a service, services, and that means that the quality of our service is highly variable and highly dependent on the quality of our people. So my job is like as CEO is primarily a filter of who gets to be a part of our ship and who needs to get off the boat. And that's a tough thing to do because there are lots of factors that are often emotional that we tend to not see, that I tend to not see in a time that it's happening. But on hindsight, it becomes much clearer. And these are often things like, I should have let that person go sooner. I should have made the decision to hire this person way sooner. I should have this and that. It's kind of like, and the emotions that come with these decisions are often not really not necessarily just uncertainty, but fear. It's often a fear of being wrong, a fear of what if I let this person go and these things break down, or what if I'm not able to find a better candidate. But all that kind of leads to the fear of just being wrong. And it's very, very personal. And all these issues often lead back to just personal insecurities that I have. So a lot of those mistakes come from how the quality of my decisions as a CEO at this stage of my career. So yeah, that's what I think about a lot.
I just want to say that's really awesome that you are able to kind of reflect on that and reflect on the decisions you make while running a business. Essentially always kind of ties back to how we are, how we grew up, our childhood, our traumas or whatever. And I think not a lot of people think that way and is very mindful about that. And throughout the last year, I've definitely learned a lot about growth, going through like therapy, life coach, and all of that, and tying more of that into how I was brought up, the things I went through, and like why we do things certain ways or why we think things certain ways.
Yeah, and everybody needs therapy.
I know.
Everybody. It doesn't necessarily... I realize that therapy is kind of a form of being mindful and being having just placing conscious thought around the conversations and decisions we have made with ourselves. So I've never had a therapist, but I feel that I've been through therapy, through the conversations I've had with people that I trust, my support system, EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, which I'm a part of. Great network and support system with no judgment. So that is super important. Kind of on hindsight, I realized that just having a support system and people I can trust with no agenda has been super helpful. And like the thing is, I would never want to walk this path alone. It's so terrible and so scary. So yeah.
And it feels good having people understand what you're going through.
The acknowledgement. Yeah.
Cool. On the topic of, not hiring the right person or not hiring the person fast enough or let go of the person fast enough, what are some tips to building an A player team?
Oof, that's a tough one. I don't think we're there yet.
Uh-huh.
I think with really fast growing organizations, um, there has to be some kind of a compromise. I feel, and again, this is coming from my opinion and my perspective, not from personal
Mm-hmm.
experience, but I
Right.
feel that fast growing organizations tend to collect a larger sample size of talent,
Mm-hmm.
of which the top 10% or the top 5% would be A players. And
Mm-hmm.
you'll have a large chunk of talent in the B category, and there are people in the C category. And
Right.
there's a common belief around, I only want A players on my team, and I can
Mm-hmm.
only tolerate and accept A players on my team. But the challenge with a statement like that is that it's really, really hard to do by definition of what an A player is. An A player
Right.
is a top 1%, top 10 percentile
Yeah.
of
In
all
their
talent
category.
available
Yeah.
to the market, right?
Mm-hmm.
So by nature, you're going to have A players that are A players in relation to your B players in your
Right.
company. Um, you can go through a process of kind of improving the quality of everybody by setting
Mm-hmm.
a really high foundation and really high standard of what excellence looks like,
Right.
which is achievable. But the obsession over, I only want to work with A players and no B players, is really difficult. But on the flip side, having C players, people who are laggards and dragging you essentially dead weight,
Yeah.
is that's something that you can absolutely act upon
Mm-hmm.
and make a decision on very quickly. Those are clear decisions to make. Where it's ambiguous is the B sector of talent, where sometimes they're on the higher spectrum of, they're kind of doing well and they overachieve on certain categories of skills and what you need them to do, but they are just doing okay in these other
Mm-hmm.
aspects.
Right.
Then that falls onto what your non-negotiables are as a company and as a team.
Mm-hmm.
And these often come back to our core values. In our
Right.
case, we call them our core principles. We have 7 of them, and
Mm-hmm.
we make hiring and firing decisions based off these
Based
7
on.
core
Yeah.
principles as well. So that
Yeah.
makes for very easy decision making because they're based on non-negotiables that we all agree upon as a team.
Right.
Where it gets really murky and tricky is when someone is kind of doing well
Mm-hmm.
culturally, right? They're a good fit, but
Yeah.
they're not up to par with performance,
Right.
right? Then what do you do? If they're subpar in performance, but they're perfect fit for the culture, they
Yeah.
add to the culture, they add to what we're trying to build,
Yeah.
then it's a decision around, all right, do you see the aptitude for this person to rise to your expectations?
Mm-hmm.
And do you foresee them to be able to take on more responsibility over time? And
Mm-hmm.
if the answer is yes, and if you want to take that journey with them, then you have to
Mm-hmm.
commit to training,
Yeah.
coaching, development, and
Yeah.
all that stuff. And that's going to take time. That's a commitment.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another um, tricky instance where you have a high performer
Mm-hmm.
but a terrible culture fit.
Yeah.
What do you do in that scenario then? Because they're doing really well, they're moving the company forward, but at the same
Yeah.
time, they're a massive risk to your culture, and it's going to kill your company in the long run.
Yeah.
The textbook answer is to fire that person. They're not a good fit. They're not a good culture fit. I'd rather take someone else who's a good culture fit, but not a good, just a decent enough performer. But the reality is that there's a lot of emotions that come
Yes.
with a decision like
Decision.
that.
Yeah.
They're moving the needle forward,
Yeah.
right? And that's really hard because sometimes it's about survival as a company or growth as a
Mm-hmm.
company.
Yeah.
So there's no clear answer to that, but I think it falls back on, again, the non-negotiables and what you accept and what you accept as a compromise.
Yeah. I've been through in any all the scenarios that you mentioned. And I've had, I would kind of say like B players, team culture very well, performance, like not where I want them to be. And it took a lot of emotions and also decision and like, can I see this person growing with the company in the long run? How much energy am I willing to put into helping this person grow? And I made the decision to have the person grow with us. And now I want to say that she's an A player and she has improved so much in the past, I want to say like 6 months. But I've also had people that are A players, not really a great culture fit. They also know that they're not really a good culture fit. And it resulted to the team member leaving. But in the time that she was in the company, she really moved the company forward a lot. And we've all learned so much from her. So yeah, there's no right answer. There's no right decision, I think. And it's just all about how you feel and just really feel into how you feel and look at the company in a big picture and in the long run as well.
And I think this is just on a meta level, this is what tends to separate really good entrepreneurs and really experienced entrepreneurs from less experienced entrepreneurs. And it's that ability to recognize patterns and act upon those patterns without necessarily consciously articulating what those decisions entail, like what we're doing right now. And we have to go through this process of kind of learning what it means for an A player to be really, really good, for a B player to be really good, but a bad culture fit and all that stuff. Yeah. But for a really experienced entrepreneur with having gone through all that, what I tend to see is that they make these decisions really quickly and they don't hesitate and they don't think about them. It's almost like picking up a bottle and drinking it out of you don't think about the mechanics of how water flows out of a bottle. It just is. Right. And that's kind of how I perceive experience and wisdom.
Yeah, that's a really good quote. Okay, we're going to dive a little bit into marketing, email marketing specifically.
All right, let's go.
So I know that paid ads are skyrocketing the price, everything, CPA really, really high. So I always believed in email marketing and I kind of always drilled down to it from day one. And now also SMS marketing. So for D2C brands, what are some fun, unique ideas that you think people can spike up their newsletter, weekly newsletter? How can we make it fun?
How can you make a weekly newsletter fun? That's a great question. There are a few ways of looking at it. Email as a channel is, and you got to think about the strengths of email as a channel. It is highly engaging, meaning when you click on an email, you're just reading that email. There's nowhere else to scroll to, and you're just consuming the content. And it's either you click through or you just exit the email. It's not like Facebook, right? You have tons of distractions,
right?
So you get to put a lot of content and a lot of information into a single email, at least much more so than most other platforms. The downside of email is that, and one more upside is that you get to personalize that email significantly using first-party and zero-party data. The downsides of email is that at any point in time, you only get to reach maybe 20-30% of your audience with any single campaign, and you got to do a resend for people who have not opened your emails, and you got to find other ways of connecting with people who have not opened your emails. So email isn't for everyone. Not everybody consumes email as a content medium. For those who do, it's extremely powerful, and you got to think about your newsletter as a function of two objectives. One, it's nurture and relationship building. And second, as potentially a form of collecting information. So I'll go with the information piece first because that's super interesting. Collecting information through activity and behavior of how the person interacts with that email. So imagine if you have a um, a, a series of variations of products, for instance, and you're trying to figure out what each consumer tends to prefer, and you could track the type of links that that person is clicking on and categorize them accordingly on the back end to create segments, and build those profiles accordingly.
Right.
So that's first party data, right? Things that you collect, and you could also use your email newsletters as a form of zero party data collection, having people fill out a form within your email or through your site, having people click through and filling out a form, a survey.
Right.
And that helps a lot with building out segments that you can then create ads for and further build out audiences on Facebook or retarget them with additional emails. So that's how I think about email as a strategy. And then with nurture and relationship building, that kind of pegs on to what you've built with that profile, whether it be preferences, behavior, how much money they've spent, how recently they became a subscriber, and if you have a retail store, have they visited a retail store?
Right.
All of that kind of built into, all right, what's the best way for me to engage and nurture each of my segment of consumers? And then that's going to answer your question of what's going to be most interesting for a weekly newsletter, because it's so dependent on who you're speaking to and what they prefer and what they want. I look at email as just one of a spectrum of channels that a brand should utilize in their lifecycle marketing strategy. So congratulations on your new app. I hope that it's probably released by the time this podcast is published.
Yeah, totally. We just launched our app for early access today, and it was totally because I had a conversation with Joshua, and we were talking about how our community is really engaged and what other ways we can use it. And Chronos Agency also does push notification marketing as well, so we kind of talked about that. And this was, I think, 3 months ago. So no, more than that, like 3-4 months ago. Yeah. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to hop on it right away. So I scheduled a call with Tapcart and basically download the app right away. And we've been building the app for 3-4 months now. So definitely huge thank you to you.
You're welcome, and I'm super happy that you took the advice. And shout out to Tapcart. They make it super easy, and for the quality of the app and the content that you have built into the app, it's incredible how quick you managed to pull that off. In the 3 months sounds like a lot of time, but if people understand how long it takes to develop an app traditionally, it's going to blow their minds. Yeah, easily, right? With the QA testing and all that stuff. No, it's live now, and people can download it and be a part of your community. So that then becomes a form of another way of engaging with your consumers and your fans, and another way to build a much stronger relationship beyond just email. So I would tend to think of email as the newsletter as a single kind of prong in a series of strategies and channels. So email, SMS, and app has to work together in terms of the messaging, the timing, and the frequency of each of those campaigns, and make sure that they're talking to one another. So if you send an email and people are not opening, send an SMS that reminds them of that email, and an app push that, and this can all sync up together using a tool like Klaviyo, which I'm a big fan of, and we're all a big fan of. So the possibilities are endless, and it's worth the time and effort put into it, especially with the context of rising ad costs, Facebook and Apple and Google doing its thing. It's important.
Yeah, cool. What are the most 3 important email flows that you think any business, even just starting out, should just start with?
Top 3, welcome series. We call it a customer acquisition flow. So that entails a pop-up, or a lead capture form of some kind. It doesn't have to be a pop-up. It can be an inline lead capture.
Right.
Give people a reason to connect with you and give you their email addresses.
Right.
And number 2 would be a cart abandonment flow. We call it the cart recovery flow. And definitely build it out yourself. Don't use a third-party app that is only built for cart abandonment, because you want to have full control over the messaging, the timing, the design of these emails, so that you're able to split test and ultimately optimize for maximum conversions at that high intent stage of your customer's journey. And the last flow that any business should have, e-commerce or not, is a post-purchase nurture series. Post-purchase, people often forget about what happens after that initial purchase.
Yeah.
That is the moment where excitement and attention is at its peak. So we often see open rates go up to like 70, 80% for an email in a post-purchase series, because people are curious about what you have to say. They just made a purchase, they just committed, and they want to learn more about your brand, and they want to learn more about where their products are at. So leverage that opportunity to deliver as much information as you can that is pertinent to building the relationship and setting yourself up for success for a second purchase. Oh, quick tip. One of the things I like to do in the post-purchase journey is, if it applies, I would include a upsell in the email as a one-time offer. So instead of having it post-purchase on the page, if people don't take up that offer, I would have the email include an additional offer, and I'll have a little photo of their package. And I would say something along the lines of, this, just about to pack your order. Is there anything else you'd like to add? By the way,
I love that.
I recommend this, and I'm not going to charge you for shipping, and 50% off, or something crazy. Just click here, complete your order, and we'll get it packed. That creates a second purchase event that ultimately means that the third purchase event becomes a lower barrier. The likelihood of someone making a second purchase from the first, like as an industry, is maybe 20% as a repeat purchase rate. But from second to third, that's way higher. That's like 60% industry average.
Yeah.
So bridging that gap is going to make a big difference, because you're creating another moment of trust and excitement.
Right. When would you put that email? Would it be the email right after the order confirmation that they received, that this is their order number and whatnot, or would it be like wait 2 days after they purchase?
Immediately, within the 24 hours, as quickly as possible. Peak excitement, that's where you want to capitalize.
I like that. I know maybe it's just me because I have limited knowledge on Klaviyo, but for example, we do apparel, and having cross-sell is kind of a pain to set up in Klaviyo because we have so many different SKUs. I'm wondering if any of your clients also run into the same problem. The ones that have a lot of SKUs, what do you even recommend in those cross-sell flows or whatnot?
It's a pain, especially with with your brand. You have like countless of SKUs, and you're coming up with new products all the time. The two ways of going about this. Number one, through collections, just retargeting collections and using collections as a tag for the triggers.
Right.
So if collection A is bought, then B, or if it's a matter of pants and tops, then maybe tag them accordingly. And then you have the alternative, which is a little bit more scrappy and brute force, but it works, is look at your top 10 SKUs at any point in time, in any month, for the past 90 days, right? And just focus on building cross-sell flows for those top 10 products.
Got it.
And that is what a lot of our clients end up doing, because recreating a tagging system on
Yeah,
Shopify
it's a pain.
is going
There's
to be a
so
massive
many
pain. Yeah,
products.
there's
Yeah.
so many. So yeah, there should be an app for that, like tag management on Shopify.
Yeah. But yeah, we were also thinking about just doing the cross sell for our best sellers, things that we're always going to have in stock.
Yeah,
Especially for us, we always have new collections, and sometimes by the time the email goes out, it's sold out, you know?
yeah,
So yeah, I think definitely a bestseller.
yeah, absolutely. And yeah, and you could create one-time campaigns for new launches as well, and kind of retarget people who you feel that product will be relevant for. And that's where the segmentations and the segments come in very handy.
All right. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Um last two fun questions and then
All
we'll
right.
wrap it up. What is a book or podcast you're listening to right now?
Ooh, I love the My First Million podcast and Tim
Oh, I
Ferriss's
love that
podcast as
one
well.
too. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Sam Parr and Sean. Sean does a really good job in their
Yeah.
thing. Have amazing guests on, really great questions, and people are so willing to share. So
Yeah.
I
I
learn a
love
lot
it.
from those shows. Tim Ferriss as well, as usual. I learn a lot from the way that he asks and structures his questions. One I'm listening to right now is with the author of the book Psychology of Money.
I read that book, Psychology of Money.
Morgan Housel.
Okay.
Yeah, The Psychology of Money: Timeless Lessons on Wealth, Greed, and Happiness. It
Yeah.
sounds now the title sounds tacky, but it's a really really good book.
Yeah, I read the book. It's amazing.
What do you like most about the his ideas? Did anything stick out?
The one thing that stuck out to me that because I read the book a while ago and like you kind of forget it, so you go back and reread the books that you want to read. But one thing that stuck out to me was that he said that he was in front of a hotel, or that he worked as someone that parked cars. What are they called? Valet.
Yeah.
And he said that when he saw someone that drove a Lamborghini or whatever, he wasn't thinking of,
Oh, the person is so cool.
oh yeah, he wasn't thinking about, oh, the person is so cool, or like, oh, like this person must be like really rich or whatever. He's just thinking of, oh wow, that person has a cool car. How can I be that person? And that like was like a light bulb moment in my head. And I was like, oh wow, like yeah, that's exactly what I also think about when I see someone driving a cool car or have a cool house. I'm like, I want to know what that person does for a living. How did they get there? How do I get there? Not, oh wow, this car is really cool. Like, you know. So
Yeah.
that was really like enlightening for me, just having him say it out loud, because you think it but you don't really think it until someone like says it out loud. You're like, oh right, like I don't even think about that.
Yeah. And I think the lesson there that I took from that story was, yeah, people just don't care. Like no one gives a crap about you. That's like, whoa, no one gives a crap about me. That's true. So I can do anything I want. And I don't really have to do things that please other people because no one really cares.
Yeah.
That was a moment of liberation as well for me.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a really good book. I've recently finished a really good book, The Hard Things About Hard Thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that book. I think in the beginning of the book, he talks about his story. Then at the end of it, he actually talks a little small chapters about implementation on certain things. And I find it really useful and insightful.
That's a good book too. Hard Thing, but Hard Things. One of the partners at Andreessen Horowitz, right? Was it Mark Andreessen? Or was it Horowitz that wrote the book?
Horowitz.
Horowitz.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Ben Horowitz, right. Yeah, I read that book too. When I think, in the first year of business, I was like, oh crap, this is what I'm going to go through? Terrible. I do not want to go
think
through
there
this.
was one chapter where he wrote and it made me cry, because when I was reading it, I was going through the same type of emotions. I forgot what chapter it is, but it was talking about how you wanted to give up and you doubt yourself and you're wondering, am I even capable of doing this? And I just read it and it was like almost like reading a letter to myself. And I really connected with that chapter.
Love that.
Cool. Last
I'll
question.
definitely check that out.
Advice for entrepreneurs to get past the 6-figure benchmark.
Don't go alone. Don't do it yourself. Lots of people have been there, done that. And trust me, nothing that you're trying to do is unique. And that's something I've come to terms with. Like nothing that we're trying to do is unique. Someone else
someone has thought of it,
done it. So yeah, go ask, connect, network, and find your answers.
Nice. Awesome. Cool. What is coming up for Chronos Agency that you want to share with us?
Ooh, fun. We're expanding. New services, new partners, amazing services.
What are you offering?
We've been building an Amazon managed service department.
Wow.
Partnered up with amazing folks, and we are building that out and working with some of our internal clients at the moment, and seeing quite a bit of success. Surprised me actually. So if anyone's interested to talk Amazon, PPC, and maybe build out a new channel for sales as a Shopify brand, kind of the benchmark that we look at is 10 to 15% of your sales as an e-com brand should come from Amazon. As much as we hate Amazon, it still is a great platform for discovery and acquiring new customers. So, so yeah, that's one thing that's top of mind for me.
That's awesome. I think nowadays a lot of brands are branching to D2C from Amazon, but also a lot of brands that are currently on Shopify are branching out to Amazon. So it kind of goes both ways.
Yep, the diversification is super important. You do not want to rely on just one platform, one channel. Just spread your risk out, and that's how you grow.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. And I really enjoyed talking to you in this episode.
Thank you, Selene.
Thank you.
Fun.